Welcome to Discerning News, where we bring you current stories from a bigger picture perspective. The purpose is to inspire clarity and enthusiasm for your unique journey.
Hello. We're at episode 15 for this podcast, Discerning News from the Spiritual Perspective.
Wow, is that exciting?
And 15.
It's almost 4 months.
That's a 1 in 5 is a 6. So
That's right. It's a 6 number.
Numerology, what does that mean, Teresa?
I don't know.
Family.
Family.
So
nurturing.
below, so above, so above, so below. The
There you
6
go.
star. It's there's a lot of love, right? It's
Love.
It's
Nurturing.
nurturing kind of thing. So we're here for you.
So we've got some nurturing, huh? Today?
Nurturing. How's everybody feeling?
It's been a good week for me. I think for everybody, but it's been an interesting week for me. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Mhm.
On the
Yeah.
bigger picture. It's just been a very interesting week. I think it's going to be a lot this week and what's going to come after the week. Not to spoil our
Yeah.
little podcast here, but I think there's going to be a lot to come after this.
Yeah, what we're going to do today is we have a couple of key stories, but we're also going to factor in some of the astrological influences and also we might say spiritual influences and have a perspective on that.
So don't get scared if you don't like astrology,
Yeah.
because don't give it away, Tom.
We've noticed the headlines have been focused on a couple of key stories. So we thought
Give
we'd
it away, Tom.
depart from that. So hang around
Keep the
and
bag closed, Tom.
have a little listen. It's time to tell them. This is the introduction, Teresa.
Oh, my bad. Okay, so who's up first?
That would be me.
Tiger.
Okay. The big story that seems to be dominating everything right now is this affecting a lot of things is the new USA tariff policies affecting, all trading countries with the United States. So there's two major points to this new policy. One is a minimum of 10% tariffs on goods. So that's the minimum of what comes in. And then also there's going to be a reciprocating tariff. So what that means basically is if the other group is tariffing our stuff 10% as an example, then we're going to tariff 10%. If they do more than that, then there's going to be a little percentage added on top of that 10% tariff. Is basically it's like a little tiered thing. It goes up, but it's still underneath what the other countries are tariffing.
Can I put it simpler for you?
Yeah, sure.
So it's 10% across the board. But if there's tariffs in the other countries, let's say a country has 50% tariffs on American goods. Well, they're going to add enough so that it's going to be 25% on the other country's goods as they come into the United States. But the minimum is 10%.
That's right.
And many countries have 10% on
A lot
us,
of countries actually already have 10%.
and we have 10% on them.
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah.
So a couple points on this, because this has been a kind of a big thing that's going to affect a lot of things. So one of the reasonings for why the administration is bringing this, their key word is fairness. They say that there's been some unfairness there. The definition of a tariff, in case you're wondering this, I don't know about you all, but I'm more of a people person and not a thing person. So sometimes I got to look this up.
It's good to have a definition, yes.
The definition of tariff is a tax or duty to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports. So it's a tax or a duty. Couple notes here for the big picture for all of us and your sensitivity out there. Since the 1800s, the U.S. has had higher tariffs and duties that fluctuated, highs being all the way up to 60 plus, lows being down to 20 plus. Right? After World War II, the tariffs started dropping significantly down to the point where in the 70s, we were down below 10%. So it just kept dropping after that. And part of that with people on the history side of it has to do with there was a need to support a lot of countries that were rebuilding after World War II.
Right.
So one of the ways they did that was they allowed tariffs, high tariffs from other countries, but kept our tariffs low to help rebuild other people's economy, other countries' economy. There were 50, there's quite a bit of them, but there were 50 highlighted countries, that are kind of more known countries that were highlighted when this was put together. And of those 50, nearly half of them have tariffs that are over 40% on the U.S. goods.
Wow.
And a majority within that has over 60% tariffs, and some of them even 90+%
Wow.
tariffs on our stuff. There are specific things where countries are doing things like there's nearly 300% tariff on dairy coming into some of their countries. So there's for instance, Canada has like a really high tariff because they want to protect their dairy industry. So they have a really, really high tariff for stuff coming in. So different countries do this. This has been going on for a really long time. The remaining tariffs that are not this high are somewhere between 30 and 10% for the other countries. A few other things is 10 to 20% tariffs, just as what Tom is bringing up, are equal still to 10% for what this new policy is. So in other words, if the country is giving 1 to up to 20%, there's still just going to be 10% tariff for the American side.
Yep.
Right. When it goes above 20%, that's when this kind of incremental percentage comes in. So as an example of that, if it's 30%, then there's going to be 15% on the American side. If it's 97% from a tariff from a different country, American's going to probably do 49%.
Right.
So that's the kind of it's this sliding scale kind of thing. These are just the facts.
So I noticed that if you have 97%, we're only charging them half of what they charge us.
Yeah, that's right. That's the facts. That's facts. So it just goes up, right? And Canada and Mexico are separate from this agreement, so they have a special deal that they're working out with America.
Oh, is that recent?
Yeah, they were excluded because they have this thing going on with the borders and making sure that there's a whole border situation because they border America. There's a separate deal there.
There's still a deal in the works or something. Okay.
Yeah, there's still tariffs, but it's just separate from the flat thing. So the concerns that people are raising about this has to do with that it could upset the global and U.S. economy.
Oh, it's going to upset somebody.
Yeah, that's right. And the concern also that will spark different trade wars with different groups and so forth. The hope from the administration, or the inspiration for this administration, is that it would rebalance trade. That's one thing, and have no longer need the post-World War II support. So that's kind of the big picture. Probably some ticky-tacky details. We didn't go quite so much, but it is just from a big picture to let you know that we are in this situation, and there has been tariffs in the past. I don't think there has been quite so many reliance on one country, that is to say America. Mm-hmm. So this is now stimulating everything, and I think that's why we wanted to talk about it and share about it. So big picture, anything you picked up from this?
So I guess for myself, I like the word fairness. And it feels to me like there's so much on the planet right now that's being, and we've talked about this a couple times before, being stimulated, being purged, brought up to the surface. And there has to be someone that's going to do this. And obviously Trump, is one of the headliners that it's in the position now to actually move forward and to do or try to do these kind of things. The interesting fact, and the thing that I recognize on the spiritual perspective side, is that there's a lot of backlash about it. So irregardless if it comes into being a more positive, fair, balanced system and way of moving with other countries around the world, which is what we want, right? I mean, there's no reason to be I heard something like hundreds of percent, higher than we as Americans, have their goods come in, they charge us hundreds and hundreds. So having that being such a unbalanced situation that it's time for this. It's time for some reality of, as far as how can we become more in balance with it. And so that's where the backlash comes, because it's not only, I guess, when you bring it back to like ourselves, the smaller, bring it from the macro to the micro back into our lives as individuals. And so when something different happens and it feels threatening, then people lash out and people start coming at situations, even if they don't know the truth about it, or even if they don't, it's just, the portrayal is, it's going to be bad for us. We're going to be paying more money. We're not going to get this. We're not going to get that from the countries. And so keeping that bigger picture as far as a spiritual soul and saying, okay, well, for myself, how do I relate to fairness with other people? Because that's really what it's about, right? It's in the spiritual aspect, it really is a mirror to, am I fair when I work with other people? Are they fair towards me? And if they're not, how do I work with that, within my realm? And so that's obviously now with the U.S. working with, how does it work with the realm of the collective, countries around the world? So that's the part that really hits me, is the fairness, and also the fact that, it's mirroring what we are going through within ourselves in being fair and working with other people, whether it be, in our business or in our personal relationships. How do we interact with one another? And also, to what percentage, which you already brought up, are we equal? Because, if we think about working with our spiritual helpers, maybe you've never heard this before, but it's a 50-50 exchange. I have to do my 50%. Spirit backs me with their 50%. And then, if I do my 20, well, Spirit's like, well, we'll let her kind of get her thing going, because it really is a 50-50 coming to the, when I come to the plate to work with my team of spiritual helpers. So that's what I want to share about. Yep. Next, Tom.
Well, what that stimulates for me is, I was thinking about, how fair am I to myself? How much energy am I putting out for others? Am I going 75% towards them, but I only get 50% back? That's not a win-win situation. And, whenever I talk about that, I always like to qualify it. Like, my 50% is that capability that I have to do my part, and somebody else's 50% is their capability. So I think we're at this stage where we have to say, you're capable and you're able to stand on your own 2 feet. So it's time to evolve the system, to make it more fair, because clearly in my view, it's just not sustainable, because we have huge trade deficits as well, where other countries are selling many, many billions of dollars more into our markets, but we don't sell as much into their markets. So that's not a long-term sustainable approach. But if I come back to it spiritually, it's just reflecting, maybe what it's reflecting is a new inner respect for 50-50, because that's, for me, when I'm doing my 50%, it feels good. I feel fulfilled. I'm doing my part. I love doing my part. That's how my true feelings feel, about things. So, and it's a stage, like we were talking last week, where people want to take and get more than their fair share, but kind of a greedy mentality, and but through services where the evolution, occurs. I think that one of the things that's fascinated me is that I've been in business for decades, and I've been aware of fair trade agreements. And when I first went to Australia, I remember there was some free trade agreements. that were in place. And it was a big deal. And everybody was saying like, oh, wow, we finally got it signed. And when I'd look at it, though, it really wasn't fair. I mean, there was still, the politicians would say, oh, we've got this in place now. It's really great. But in fact, when you looked at it, the percentages were skewed. Like it wasn't a 50-50. And that was the idea, for these, free trade, fair trade agreements. And I remember being in Australia, and I wanted that to happen for Australia with the US. I wanted it to be a free trade, situation. And having been a little bit involved in that in exporting, I mean, it is a real, like, when you go to try to figure out percentages of what you've got to add as you get into ports, and it's a real bureaucratic nightmare. But well, it takes some doing, and there's people that make a living. The import and export agents make a living doing that. So I guess in summary for me is really comes down to, am I going to be fair with myself? So am I being fair with my energy? Am I giving enough, you might say that positive, loving, nurturing feelings to myself as I'm giving to others? And it's pretty interesting because it seems like, wow, we're really finding out the true facts. Like one of the things I've often noticed is that whenever things begin to be revealed and start going on the right track, and even when I've been involved in business working on projects and, get an inspired idea, or I watch other people get inspired ideas and they start to implement them, I mean, everybody around them starts to fight them, even though it's like the common sense thing to do. And I'm sure many people who have been in business and at work have had that happen. So anyway, something's happening there. So is there any latest news? No. Is there any latest news?
Okay. So
who's next? Tiger.
Yeah, for me, this is going to come down to the energy of welcoming. For me, to be welcoming of transformation and change, because in the end, this is such a stimulus, and it is, it's almost like changing giving a shock to a body, right? Like you're giving a shock to a body, and your body just really goes into survival mode for a little bit after a shock. Like if you submerge yourself in cold water, your body goes into shock. You're getting really in a desert, you can go into shock. Or you had a traumatic thing, you can go into shock. So there's a shock energy starting to move through. And regardless of, first of all, my idea of whether I think something is good or bad, I can't sustain myself in an energy of shock, right? I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do in the environment and with people if I don't have myself 100%. So part of it comes down for me is the welcoming energy, not the welcoming because I like it or don't like it, the welcoming for my own well-being, the welcoming for my opportunity. So that puts me in a better state, number one. Number two is, this is the kind of stuff that's been going on for as long as we have recorded history and then some. People have been who in charge, and governments or dictators or kings and queens, been doing this kind of thing forever. And there's always what happens is there's always this energy of winners and losers getting picked, and some of it by unconsciously, but it's the nature of it, what happens when people aren't having that free trade energy that, Tom, you're bringing up. So, that free trade is the ability to just allow things to move freely and allow people to work things out on their own, right? So that would be wonderful. I'm more of that guy, right? Because I want to be able to share with people at a more free way and not have to do more juggling and jumping through hoops and all this kind of stuff. So by nature, I'm more of that. But this goes back to our previous episode, if you haven't seen it, where we started talking about how you can have gangs who will take advantage of people. And so you have to have boundaries, right? So if everybody was running off the same basis, then it would be different. Then you would have more of a, I'm going to work with you and you're going to work with me. And there's that respect, right? Or that fairness that you're bringing up. But you can have people in the mix, and Tom was kind of hinting at that a little bit. It's like you have people in your own business or another company you're working at, and they kind of are nefarious kind of folks. They got different interests in heart there. And so then you have to now put some boundaries there. Okay, well, now we got to put some rules, and well, you can't do that. And here we go, right? And so that's part of the deal that we're in, whether I like it or not. So it's for me to, number one, be welcoming of that. The other thing that this comes home to, and I think you're kind of bringing this up, is I'm going to start claiming it for myself, Tom, but start to be clear about my own economy, right? The economy of the world that I have to play the game with, and that is a reality. But I also need to come from that pivot point of my own economy, working with my own energy and my own service, and how I'm going to build myself, and how I'm supporting my unit, and how I'm supporting my community. And in the old scriptures, way back when, they talk about that it's a sin in essence to not be of service so much that you're supporting your community and 2 generations. That if you're not doing that, you're actually not doing what God says to do, right? If you're into that. So what the spirit of that is saying is that I need to be of service and overflow of service. Right? That I'm just getting involved. I get what I need, but then I can just overflow with it, right? And so not only am I helping my unit and my community, I'm actually setting things up for myself 2 generations, right? For those of you who believe in continuity, you're basically setting yourself up, right? But regardless of whether you do or don't, you're building that energy, right? You're building that line. So that's something to be sensitive. I need to be of service. And the inner policy that I need to have needs to be working with people, finding the exchange with people, and being really sensitive to that. Because the whole tariff thing, that's just a reflection of how I need to be working with my team, my partners, those that I want to come to work with. And the getting here near the end, but one of the things that we were clarifying this week was the difference between wanting to just help people and wanting to be of service to people. And wanting to help people is a good thing, but it opens itself up to so much influence. But when I want to be of service to people, that's a much bigger umbrella, and it's much more clear. It doesn't allow so much personality to get in there. So that's another thing to be aware of. And I'm going to bring this up when we come back. We're going to take a break here in just a minute. But when we come back, it's talking about the larger picture of what this is creating, and allowing myself to have a little altitude of what is actually happening here. And then I can be relaxed and I can start welcoming the change as opposed to getting resistant and fighting it. So in conclusion, it's for me just to be sensitive that it's there, not to get caught up in it, to start being of service and being of super service, and being alert to where are the people I need to be working with and how can I be of service. That's it at the end of the day, whether I'm just working a 9-to-5 job, or whether I got my own business, or whether I'm a desperate house husband and I'm taking care of the kids, or whatever it is, how can I continue to be of service in such a way that I'm overflowing? And that's me.
When you gravitate towards trust, life moves with more grace and ease. One way is staying in the now and mastering your inner world, those psychic perceptions that show up through feelings, knowings, hearing, and seeing. If you are ready for more clarity for your direction in life, by honoring your time and trust, Check out the link in the show notes for our next Intuition Now Masterclass, where we explore your inner abilities and support you in getting your own answers and start trusting in yourself.
So it's interesting because this last week I really recognized on a bigger picture some things going on with the earth. And so being a very sensitive person as myself, and many of you out there probably are, you might recognize that there's some things going on energetically. So I wanted to bring into this conversation today what I've noticed. So I've noticed there's been all kinds of earthquakes around the whole entire planet, and in some really weird places too. Some places you wouldn't really expect. So all the way from Burma, and then there's been quite a few in California, and just if you Google earthquakes this past week, you'll be like, wow, there's been a lot. Japan had another one. Thailand had one. So it's just like there's all kinds of things shifting and changing. Yeah, some big ones. So one thing I want to bring into the conversation also is what's going on in the cosmos. So, again, if you do or don't believe in astrology, there is it's an influence from the planets of gravity and energy. And so there's a big thing that happened on March 30th of this year, 2025, and the planet Neptune. And sometimes when I think about these planets, I'm like, if you looked at how far they are from us, it's absolutely incredible that these planets can actually influence us in certain ways, if you believe in that thing. Okay. So,
we believe in it.
Oh, you believe in it, Thomas. So Neptune left the sign of Pisces, which is a water sign, and entered the sign of Aries, which is a fire sign. And it hasn't done that since 1861. And when it happened before, the Civil War started that year.
Yikes.
So just a little something about Neptune. Neptune's journey defines eras, shapes cultural movements, technological revolutions, and the way we engage with the world on a fundamental level. And now, for the first time in over 160 years, this elusive, otherworldly planet is stepping into a brand new sign. Neptune's movements are truly generation defining. Neptune will now be in Aries until 2039. And meaning the next 14 years are going to look very different from what we've experienced ever before. And so I just wanted to really bring that energy of Neptune, of kind of the planetary bigger picture, and just get us some insights and maybe some spiritual thoughts around, what's kind of going on between that and the planet and everything. So Tom, you have any thoughts about that?
Fasten your seatbelt.
Trade to the upright position.
Strap in. We first heard this when we were doing our podcast with our friend Chiron Yang, as we were comparing the La Familia Nuestra energies, or the energy calendars we work with at the Wayshowers College, and the astrological influences. And as we, one of the things Chiron kept saying is, from the star signs, like we're in an amazing time of change. And he pointed out that, after a long time of being in Pisces, Neptune is moving to Aries, and that really makes a big difference. So that's the first I heard of it. But it is fascinating. I mean, I have to say that, for example, these tariffs, the feeling I have, like, this is big. It's a big shift. But I also have the feeling like, yep, this is the cycle now where tariffs are coming back. It feels like it's just how things evolve, up and down and back and forth. And we're back to it. And I have to say that, like, spiritually, in my true feelings, I really feel that. Like, I'm not shocked. I'm curious. I'm wondering how it's all going to play out. Intellectually, it seems like a good idea to have no tariffs for anybody. And if that's what other countries would do, then apparently we would do the same thing. But so I think it's just one of those times where, and the other part is, like, it's so revealing to see, I knew that some countries had tariffs. I had no idea that some countries like Canada had such big tariffs. And, I don't think of Canada as some little backwater anymore. They're, that it's not like it. And I suppose, you could think of China back in the day, or, that many decades ago as being, mostly peasants. And I guess it still is in some ways, but there's gazillions of millionaires over there now too. It's like the whole world's in a different place. It's, in fact, when you travel internationally, so many countries are very similar. It's hard to realize you're in a different place. I mean, there are the third world countries, which really are backwards, but there's such a homogeneous look around the world anymore. People have cars, they have houses, they go to school, they have good jobs, and so we're definitely at a different stage.
Yeah, just to add to that, so I think people are listening to this. You're probably sensitive to the environment and listening to alternative things, not just what's mainstream. And a lot of the communication has been about that we're in this amazing time of change, even without the being aware of the influences of the planets and the influences of the shifting of things. You can just feel that we're in an interesting time, and I used to kind of guess and or doubt about the influences of the planets and stuff like that. And then someone said something to me really simple. I just said, well, 9 planets and you got 9 holes. I thought, right. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. In other words, I am made up. I am the sum total of everything here, and I couldn't be here without the influence of the things around here. And once you get past the little cooking your brain noodle on that, it's like, right, yeah, of course. How if the physical body could not survive here without all the little germs and all the little gold pieces in it and all this good stuff, well, then why is it spiritually I would think I could survive here without the pressures of the universe? I'm the sum total of everything. So I brought that up because we're in that auspicious time, and it is a lot of stuff is going to find its way, kind of like water, finding its way over rocks, underneath logs, and around to go seek its level. And that's kind of what's happening here for me. And the other big picture, using the tariff story as the means, is I got this insight to look past that. Like, let me look past this, right? And I started realizing that this is a need for a lot of people, a lot of different boundaries, a lot of different countries. So the how this is coming may not be my preference, but what has to happen is a requirement. And so whether it's this or something else, we are going to go through some rocky road, right? It doesn't mean that everything's going to fall apart. I mean, I certainly don't want that. But regardless of what it is, I need to be aware that this is gravity. And I can fight against it for a while, but pretty soon if I keep fighting against it instead of working with it, I'm going to get worn out. So I need to start really getting in tune to where I'm heading, where we're heading, so I can be part of the solution and not the pollution. And part of that, as far as a message for me, is it's important for me to move, right? Get latitude and longitude, move on the planet a little bit. They say that if you really want to appreciate people, you need to travel, right? That's one of the old sayings, because you can really get a new perspective about who you are and what you've accomplished for yourself and the people around you and all this. It's just very helpful. But the other thing I'm going to add to it is not only do I need to have some of that movement left and right and up and down, but I need to have that movement in altitude, up, right? I need to have that movement up. So it's too easy just to see the world from where I'm just in my little box. and get caught in that picture. And my guidance, which you're hinting about doing your 50% with spirit, my guidance don't look at the world like that. They have altitude, right? And they see that bigger picture from the top down. They don't play a game by getting caught in a little picture. They let themselves float up. Or if they're going to work with things that are specific, they move in and they move out. And that's what I need to do with these kind of challenges. When I'm hit with something, I need to be able to move into it and I need to move out of it. And if I need to get it again and get the better, I need to move in and I need to move out. Otherwise, I will become part of the pollution. I will become part of the churning of it, because that's the law of nature, right? So to have that bigger picture, I can see beyond this moment. It doesn't mean that I don't live in the moment, but I can see a big picture, right? And just to give perspective on that, just to get, say, 150 feet up higher. I know I'm talking logistics here, right? But let's say any one of us goes and stands on a tall bridge or goes up to a tall building and you look down at things. It's a very different perspective. And I'm so used to looking up at the trees and looking at cars a certain way and looking at people a certain way until I shift my energy a little bit and I get a different perspective and a point of view, I'm going to be simmering in the same energy. So it's important for me to take a little break every now and then, meditate, work with my guidance, do my prayers or whatever it is you have, and let myself elevate. Let yourself come up to the bigger picture of who you are, and what you've come to do. Without that perspective, I'm going to get stuck. And these little things that are, in honesty, transient, they're going to cause some trouble, but they're transient. The water's still flowing. And that was what I was going to wrap up with, is that when one faucet closes down, Spirit has this amazing thing to create. When one faucet closes down, 5 more springs come up. And that is just the law while we're here, right? Maybe in galaxy system, whatever, it's a little bit different. But here, this is the way it is. When one energy shuts down, a bunch more pop up, because that is part of the law of energy and flowing into form, through form, and out of form. It's just the way it's going to happen. So if I'm working with energy, I'm working with my bigger picture, and I'm not caught in my little picture, I will find the opportunities that I need to be a part of, and I'm not caught in it. And the worst thing I know for myself, and I'd love to hear what your perspective is on it, is I'm sensitive enough, I'm aware enough, I've been doing work enough that if I get caught up in it, I become a part of it, right? And it doesn't feel good. So I need to be able to move in, be of service, move out. Move in, be of service, move out. Not a retreating away, just regrouping, right? And get back into it. But the more I do that, the more I'm a healing force, the more I'm part of the solution. So that's what stands out to me.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up the feeling part of us, because that's a big component. And we just had our class last night, our Intuition Now expansion experience on the feeling gift. And we dove into 90 minutes around feeling and just really being. And a big key from that came out of that last night was the fact that, there's so much out in the world, like even what we're sharing here, a lot of intellectual, numbers and words and, percentages and whatever, like today we're sharing, okay? Like we share every week. But the reality is just how are you being within your realm of your world? It's kind of what I hear you saying. And recognizing that within each of us, we all move in different places, and we're all influenced in different times from different things that we've experienced in the past, concepts and beliefs we might have picked up from our mom, our dad, our environment, those first 7 years that were so, crucial and we're like the pavement, setting the pavement of what was to come for us. So recognizing that every person has their own variation of what we're all experiencing. So that we're here talking about the planets, and I've really recognized, about the earth shaking in different places and breaking open. And so how am I to be when all this is happening? And so I always like to go to that place because of the fact that I am very sensitive. And when I tune in, and I mean, I used to be so aware, like when a solar flare would leave the sun. That's how sensitive I am. And so recognizing that, all the influences in the solar system and on the planet and in my environment, and, how am I just to be myself as I move through this? And that really is, to myself and listeners, is really, it's an exploration of independence. It's your own exploration of how you are here to explore it, because we're all here. We're all obviously, souls and physical bodies, but we have all these different unique blends of experiences that make up who we are. And so I always like to kind of go there because of the fact that because I am a very sensitive person, and, so are you. But my thing is that I've over lifetimes have developed a sensitivity to this lifetime. I'm now experiencing it in a whole new way because I'm aware of it. And maybe where you're at, you're not as sensitive or think you are, because I hear that a lot too. I'm not psychic. I'm not this. Well, yeah, you really are. It's just getting to the point in your lifetime and the experience of your soul's journey where you're now recognizing, oh, I do pick up insights, and I do get those inner knowings, and I do, feel from my gut instinct or whatever, whatever part is starting to really open up within you. And I also feel that's part of this exploration of the planet and the cosmos and what's going on right now. It's all breaking open, so to speak. Yeah. Areas within us to come forward and to expose itself, and to be like, oh, now I am recognizing that I have this, this outer, what I want to say, well, it's a skeleton with an outer surface, but but within me, I'm a sensitive, energetic being.
Something about a skin suit or something.
Oh yeah, I used to say that. You say I'm a skin. What? How did I say that? I can't remember now.
Well, it was really good.
Meat suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to call it a meat suit.
I suggest you surf all our episodes and look for that time when she.
No, it's an enthusiastically spirit. It's in a whole bunch of those episodes because I did used to say it a lot, but I've grown out of it. Anyway, that's my spiritual perspectives. Anything else you want to share about that, Tom?
Oh yeah,
because I had a feeling.
Well, as these changes occur, the feeling I have is like there's going to be plenty of opportunities. Just hold tight, be patient, see how things sort themselves out. And that's the other thing that I can feel is the dynamic, change. One of the reasons that the stock market is a bit like not doing one thing or another is they're just waiting to see where is the energy going to end up? Where are those five, geysers of energy going to show up so they can go put their resources into that? It never disappears. They just sort of pull back and wait until we have a clear idea of where the beef's going to be, where the momentum's going to show up. I also tune into this feeling of, it's not one person that's really leading the charge. It's a wave of energy, but that right now, whether you like him or not, Trump is sort of the spokesperson, the spearhead, the coordinator, but there's a lot of people that are working with him. And it's amazing to me how when that leadership shows up, people start to fall into line, like almost naturally, because that's where the wave of energy is going. So they might kick and scream and complain and so on and so forth, but we almost give the leader too much credit in the sense that, or they give themselves too much credit for what goes on. And many people will say, oh, that's true about him. That's true about old Trump. But it's more that there's this wave of energy. There's people that are working in an opportunity, and it's going to be faced one way or another. That's the feeling I get. I know that for me, all I can do is, what I need to be doing. Like I had to, it's nearly tax time, and I've been working on getting all the tax information to the accountants and want to be on time this year and that kind of thing. And, it doesn't matter what's happening to the stock market to me. I mean, it doesn't matter what the last news conference was. I've got to get my stuff done because they aren't going to stop. The IRS is not going to stop doing its thing, or earthquakes are not going to stop happening around the world. I mean, there's all these things. So really, as these waves change, I'll go crazy if I'm trying to somehow control,
Right.
what and being like, waiting to hear the last tidbit of the last thing. And, it keeps people entertained in this kind of, one-upmanship game or competition game. But I have to come back to myself because, especially as I've been around, for several decades, like this stuff just never stops. It's always one thing after another, like Dana's mother used to say, it's always something. But there's so much truth in that in terms of shifts and the way things evolve. It seems to overall be getting better in some ways. And in some ways, I'm surprised we're going through certain areas again. But when I look at history and when I even just look at my own life, like this is part of the rough and tumble. So how do I navigate this? How do I keep my ship sailing smoothly? And it's really working with my sensitivity, that positive outlook, tuning into my guidance to really know what's my business and what's not my business.
Yeah, my wrap up here is just to be sensitive of excuses for myself, right? Where do I put excuses in the mix to not do what I need to be doing, right? There's, a journeyman once said, arguing is steak for confusion and bitching is dessert. And it's like, what excuse am I going to use to get involved into things that don't serve me, that aren't going to build, right? That's at the end of the deal. The longer I get involved in that, all I'm doing is just creating more energy in that. And I can change it anytime. That's the good news. But if I've got a habit of bitching and complaining or fighting and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be tough to get out. It's going to be tough to get out. I just keep getting pulled back in. So I need to reset my energy and remember that there are no excuses anymore, right? If you're listening to this and you're still listening, chances are you're one of those people. There's no more excuses, right? I know I have them. I was just regrouping with a journeyman the other day, and they were like, "Tiger, what's your excuse?" And it's like, "Oh, God damn, it's true. At the end of the day, if I want something, if I need something, I need to be a part of go get it. That's it. And I might think the other person is disrespecting me, or I might think that the other person doesn't have clear motives. But at the end of the day, it's my need. It's my need, not their need. So I need to find a way. And if I'm not finding a way with all these changes going on, then I'm just wasting my time and wasting other people's time. So to me, this all comes down to all these situations, these changes in the environment, the planetary thing, whatever you want to put into the mix, it's all still saying the same thing, is there's shifting going on and we're going someplace. And everything that I tune into is that someplace that we're going is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It just means if I'm gotten comfy and I'm used to thinking a certain way, then I'm getting thrown out of that comfy energy, right? Someone's pushed me out of the couch, and that's uncomfortable. I like being all comfy and have my little feather pillow and all that kind of stuff, If I'm not, now I'm getting out into it's cold out. I got to put a jacket. Well, that's not what I want, So I need to remember that all of that becomes this little detail. The moment I have my own direction, I'm putting away the excuses. I need to go be of service. I need to go have fun. I want to go work with the people that I've come to work with. And that becomes my focus. And everything else is a means to an end. Everything is a means to an end. So that's the big thing. I think we're up for some beautiful stuff, beautiful changes. If I want it to have that track greased, I want to be welcoming of change and do what I need to do to get what I need to get. And that's what it comes down to in the end.
When you arrived back, you were enthusiastic to be here. If you've lost some of that enthusiasm, there's a way to reawaken it. It's by embracing a bigger spiritual picture of your life as a soul and igniting the feeling of freedom within. If you're ready and needing some more enthusiastic mojo for yourself, then follow the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College and get ready to start feeling more clarity, hope, and freedom within.
All right. So down to the inspirational story of the day or the week. So Teresa, I think you found a nice little story that will inspire us.
I did. So, which I do every week, but yeah, this one is interesting
She's got a
because
good job.
Yeah.
you know, right.
Best
Like
job.
all the rest of that stuff or whatever. I want to
How
talk
did
about that.
you wrangle that?
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that happen? Oh, well.
It's called
It was
enthusiasm.
a smart one, I guess. That's how you know that's
Obviously, she does respect herself.
That's right.
She does
That's right.
meet her needs.
Well, what caught my eye because I oftentimes look at the picture and then maybe a couple words of what is that about? And the words I saw was nothing is impossible. I was like, ooh, that kind of like stirred a little bit inside of me. So I looked further. It had a picture of a lady swimming. And the person is, her name is Melanie Barat. I hope I'm saying that right. Barratt. She is 49 years old. And what happened last year is she actually swam across the English Channel. Now, people swim the English Channel all the time. Not really, but what was really special about her is she's actually a blind woman. So
Wow.
she actually did this last August 28th of 2024. She swam the channel. She was born with some scarred eyes after her mom contracted toxoplasmosis during pregnancy, which doesn't sound too good. So she can actually see bright colors and shapes, but she's actually legally blind. And so she took up swimming, and she recognized that whenever she took up swimming, she felt more free. And she started really feeling her body in a way that she never felt before. And I know too, when people have disabilities, different areas are amplified, their psychic abilities or their feeling gifts or whatever. So she joined the British Blind Sports Charity, and they helped her really understand how to swim and how not to bump her head in the pool. And then they took her out into to water that was really cold. And that's when she really said she felt every cell in her body. So she really got just, engulfed in that feeling, and she loved it. So again, she is also a Paralympic gold medalist, and she crossed the English Channel and actually finished it under time. She was hoping to do it in 14 hours, and she did it in 12 hours and 20 minutes. And so I was very inspired by this story, and so I wanted to bring it forth and see what inspiration you guys had from beautiful Melanie Barat.
Well, what strikes me is how, it's impossible for me to waste time. I mean, judge what another person can achieve or not achieve. And I'm so glad that I can see, I'm a visionary is my first gift, and I love to see. I love everything I see. And I'm so thrilled for that person that they have a life where they feel, that fulfillment and just great accomplishments, but it's more for herself than anyone else. I guess it's that confidence. I mean, it's inspirational, and I'm inspired by another soul making the best of their situation and doing for themselves and finding the help. I mean, it's got all those elements in it. So never judge a situation or a person's potential. And I guess that's the probably the big key is a reminder again that who am I to say what a person can achieve or not achieve?
Yeah, that was a really good opening with that one, because I once you shared what the inspirational story was going to be. I actually looked it up and did a little bit of a dive on that, and the thing, I won't carry on what you all said already. I'll just add to it. The thing that stood out to me had to do with the spiritual side of this. There's all the point where, there's legally blind. You've got like one fake eye and one eye that's like, you can only see shapes and stuff. And, it's like, wow, here she is swimming the ocean. Right. So like I have all my faculties, and I don't want to go do that. I'm concerned about that. So, there's that physical side of just accomplishing and achieving. And it's, wow, what's my excuse to do anything in life? But the other part that really stood out to me, and where I went to really quick, was I started being guided to look at and see the makeup of all that. Like, what does it take to have someone who's legally blind to swim the English Channel, right? Like, how does that happen? Like, yeah, I'm sure we've all met people who have disabilities, and like a lot of them, are just buying their time. There's people that are not inspired, so a lot of them are, but it's like, gosh, what inspires someone to go do that with one eye that you can barely see only shapes and light out of? Like, what is that? So it caught me to just go deeper. It just caused me to like, okay, well, how does it that a soul chooses a situation where their eyes get infected as in the womb? What is that? So it really helped me come back to the basics of what I set up for myself and what I'm being a part of. And Tom, you're alluding to it, that all the things that happen and all the people that come into my life and go out of my life, like, it's all a contribution to what I'm doing and going forward. And there's just, and the other part of the story is the lady most of her life felt very insecure, not just because of the inability to see, just because of her interactions with people. And that swimming gave her that outlet, right? So there's something there, like, to be able to come back home, to feel that. And part of what I feel we do is, you don't need to go blind to go feel that, right? I don't need to put myself into tragedy in order to go through a big loop to go find home, to find peace, to find what I need to be doing in life. Now, I know I'm going to end up doing some of that because I'm a hard-headed intuitive and I get stuck in my way, right? But that being said, I don't need to do that. It's here for me now. For everyone listening, it's here for you now. And if I'm willing to just start going toward what my needs are and my wants, then everything else just becomes out there. I'm aware of it, but I don't use it as a means to slow me down. I use it as a tool to move me forward. And if I'm loyal to what I've come to do, if I'm loyal to what I have interest in, then naturally people will come in and naturally people will move out. So the naysayers will be further away from me rather than close to me. The people who do help will start gravitating to me. And I think another part of that story that is in there is her partner, her husband. They figured a thing out where she puts on this thing while she's swimming so she can hear her partner in a kayak, right? Her partner's with her doing this, right? I mean, this is another thing to add to it. Here she attracted someone who wants to be a part of that, right? So he communicates with her every now and then. So just to kind of keep her straight, we're going into the ocean, but that's like unbelievable power when someone just have purpose and direction, and the influence. And now here we are talking about it. So it's a beautiful thing, and it just reminds me how important it is just to have a little personal direction and have that bigger picture, and everything else will work itself out as long as I don't try to over control the situation, which is what you were bringing up. The more I keep trying to, no, they shouldn't say that, and why did God do this to me and made me, why did my partner did this, or the kids that, or the money that, like, that's all a distraction. Every single piece of it is it's my excuse to go get involved in something that's not going to move me forward. Can I have things that happen? I have bad habits that will put me in the black hole? Yes. And I have them, and I've had them, and I might have some in the future. But they become, I'll stay in them until I realize they're excuses. And so to me, to wrap this up for me, the inspirational story is just another example of a soul who has a destiny, has something going on spiritually that's a bigger picture, and they're going to go do it. And there's no excuses.
Yeah. So for myself, the word inspiration does come through for sure. As soon as I saw that nothing is impossible, I was like it really just hit me big time. And I guess because lately I've also been recognizing that kind of what you're saying, Tiger, in the sense of, everyone's got their own destiny. Everyone has their own backstory of where they come from. And so these souls that come and do these almost extraordinary events, like who does that? Like who swims the English Channel? That's fucking hard, right? And it's cold as hell. And it's like, it's not something hardly anybody wants to do. And so being an inspiration and being a figure of someone that's, like you said, like blind and, and swimming that far distance and doing it in a very timely manner, not 14 hours, but 12 hours and 20 minutes, is such an inspiration. So I, for myself, am inspired when I hear stories like this. And also it makes me look at other people, like you're saying, who don't really have, even like me, I'm so blessed. I mean, it makes me humble and gives me gratitude that I can see, I can walk, I don't have all these other, things that people have going on within their physical body or their mental body or whatever. But recognizing that when I see someone doing something like this, that I can do anything. There's nothing that can stop me if I have that within me, that direction, that momentum, and that inspiration to just go and do it. Because you know what, like, for some reason lately too, I guess everything's really been shifting, but recognizing that time is of an essence. Like I only have so many more years left. And then I'll be done with this body and onward I go. And so what am I going to do while I'm here? What are you out there, listeners, going to do for the rest of the time you're here? How short or how long we each have. It's like, man, don't hold back. That's what the feeling I get. Just go for it.
I think too, for me, like just the challenges that have showed up in my life, the situations that I don't particularly like, I don't think I prefer, certain relationships or situations with people. Accept it. There's something there for me. Right. That's the inspiration that I get, is that if I kind of attack it, you might say, or just, charge, there's that keyword of the month, charge into it, there's going to be some learning there, rather than sit around and go, oh my God, why did my mom have this? And now that, and what, poor, kind of like, oh, I was dealt a raw hand and kind of a thing. Because there are going to be those things that as a soul I've attracted. This is a feeling I get. So like, this gives me new hope to just like that story, to just kind of okay, go for it. Just like, where is the pony here? Where is the, where, the fulfillment and learning, if I think with my intellect only, and and my emotions, it's hard to get there. It's easy to, feel like things are unjust or whatever. But when I tune into my true feelings, like when I was younger, or little kids will say the most positive things in the midst of, some challenge, which is why we love to hang around them, because they haven't been brainwashed the other way. So anyways, accept the challenges.
So just to wrap up, I think that's what you're doing there, Tom. Is my wrap up is that every situation is perfect for me.
Yeah,
that was what I was kind of getting at. And whether we're talking about that other story about all the tariffs, or we're talking about this inspirational story, and then we talked about the bigger picture, for me, I'm coming home in my wrap up of this episode is everything is perfect for me and what I've come to do. And it is such that Spirit won't allow things to come into my life that I'm not prepared for. Now, I may not think that. I may get caught up in stuff. I may go rushing to my little corner and try to hide. But the truth is I picked this time to be here. And I picked this body. I picked this situation for what I can do for myself. And so just to be more specific, I think of all the challenges I've been through, some of the bad things that have happened to me, and some of the good things, but there couldn't have been a more perfect scenario. I could not have picked a more perfect scenario in order for me to be who I am, know what I know, and live the way I want to, and even more important, to have the direction that I have. That's the perfection that I see, and that's my wrap up for this episode. It's just so inspirational, and it just wraps up the whole thing for me.
Yeah, I think for myself, there was the correlation between the tariffs, which are worldwide, going to be affected worldwide, the worldwide earthquakes, and I didn't even talk about like the tornadoes that have been going on in America, like tons of them all over the place. So, everything is definitely, I also feel a moment in time for me to shift, for me to maybe gravitate towards a new direction or a new energy that I had not even thought about, but now it's surfacing because things are cracking open, things are moving and shifting. So, and then, the last one, nothing is impossible, recognizing that, again, it's all set up perfectly for what I've come to do. And you too, listeners, there's nothing that's even in, like you're saying, Tiger, for me too, like some of the things that have happened that maybe aren't the best, looking things, or they've been real, harmful and hurtful for my heart, but it's created who I am. And I'm, I'm honored for the stories and the insights we had today.
Yeah. Sounds great. I mean,
Number 15.
Number 15.
1-5 is a 6.
And we want to thank you all out there for the comments you've been leaving on our YouTube channel. Thank you so very much. We appreciate every single one of them. Also, appreciate you listening, and please feel free to share this with friends and family and anyone that might get a little kick of knowing, there's more to the news than just what the news says or the headline.
That's right.
There's a little more spiritual perspective that can maybe bring a little more hope and a little more clarity to their life. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.